السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. Welcome everyone to this workshop, understanding the new immigration registry, what it means, how it will affect you, and how we can respond as a community. CAIR Council on American Islamic Relations, the Columbus, Central, and Southern Ohio chapter is grateful for our attorney, Zena Abu Hijle, who is volunteering her time to be with us and to answer questions and to respond to this issue, as well as the Ohio Immigrant Alliance, and Len Tremont here is with us, and we're grateful for your co-sponsorship of this panel and this workshop. In all reality, without really exaggerating the situation, we believe that America is in crisis. America is in an identity crisis. America is not sure if it's want to be a republic, if it's want to be a kingdom, and there are just a lot of bad things that are happening that we're used to seeing in some third world country dictatorships, where the executive is being non-responsive to the judiciary and not listening to the courts, and people are taken without the police is in with masks and not identifying themselves or which agency they are with, and people are kidnapped from the streets. Bad things are happening, but at the same time, a lot of good things are happening. Communities like ours are coming together and in alliance with other organizations. Also, the courts are able to issue rulings that have been really effective in some instances, like the one we have here in the state of Ohio yesterday, when a judge reinstated the revoked visa of an international student. One of our cases that we were handling today, the student whose visa was revoked, the visa was reinstated for that student, and this was really great news and great relief. Things are, while bad things are happening, a lot of good things are happening, and the response of the good people in the United States, hopefully, is outweighing and will continue to outweigh any bad effect of the bad policies that are being instituted. We're grateful for everyone joining in, and I hope we'll have more people participating, inshallah. I will leave it to Zena. Maybe Len, to tell us a little bit about the Ohio Immigrant Alliance and what you guys do. I'm doing a great job, but I would love for people to hear it straight from you, and then we will turn it over to Zena. We will have about an hour and a half, a little bit less than an hour and a half, and Zena is going to give us the workshop and the training and the information, and then we're going to dedicate maybe half of the time, depending on how things go, to the question answers, because a lot of times, you give the information that you have, that you think this is what people need to know, but then sometimes people need to know other things and situations where there are that affects them directly. We'll try our best to answer these questions. The attorney, of course, will try her best to answer these questions, and the things that we cannot answer, we'll try to get back to you. We cannot deal with specific cases. We can give advice on specific cases, not on, and please do not share any private information with us on the Zoom. Well, this is going to be one-way conversation anyway. We will see your questions and we'll answer them, and we will not be mentioning any names or any specific information about anyone. Without further ado, I want to welcome Len to speak for a few minutes and tell us about the Ohio Immigrants Alliance.
Thank you so much, Khaled, and great to meet everybody. My name is Lynn Tremonti. I'm with the Ohio Immigrant Alliance. We are a group of U.S. citizens and people born in other countries, including citizens, but people who've chosen to make Ohio their home. And we believe that Ohio can be a great place to live, great place to raise your family, but that we have to work to make it be the type of place that we want it to be. We have a website called ohioishome.org where you can get all kinds of information if you are an immigrant, gives you great guidance on how to find a good immigration lawyer, how to work with your lawyer, what items to get prepared before you show up for your first appointment. If you are a community-facing group, if you're an educator, health system worker, anybody who's got a public-facing role, and you want to make sure you can focus on your core mission and not become an arm of the immigration police, there's resources for you on ohioishome.org. And then the third component of it is where is our community safety and how we keep our community safe. We have a hotline where people can report racial profiling, incidents, abuses, activities by the Border Patrol and Immigration and Customs Enforcement. You can use the hotline to ask questions, get resources. It's 1-419-777-HELP. We also operate a program to connect immigrants who are incarcerated for ICE with volunteers on the outside to be their phone buddies, just to provide somebody that they can talk to. You know, detention is a lonely place. Being in jail, very, very stressful. And for somebody who's fighting their immigration case to be put in a county jail in Ohio and be taken away from everything they know and love, super isolating. So we have a program called the Phone Buddy Program. If you want to volunteer to join that program, we're taking volunteers. We also have an accompaniment program where immigrants who have to go to an agency like the Bureau of Motor Vehicles or ICE or USCIS or the immigration courts. Again, if you don't want to go alone and you just want to have somebody with you by your side to walk with you, we can help make that happen. So we believe that migration is just something that happens. It's as old as time, it's as basic as breathing, and it's not something to be afraid of. And when people decide to move to Ohio, to make it their new home, we think that they should get a warm welcome and that people who've been here for a long time can provide that welcome to them. Our main website is ohioimmigrant.org. And I guess the last thing I'll mention and why I'm so honored to have been invited to this meeting today is that to me, the way the Muslim community has been treated since 9/11 and even before that, to me does not represent the type of country the United States claims to be. I was in DC on 9/11 and I was working on Capitol Hill when they were passing the Patriot Act and the Real ID Act and creating the Department of Homeland Security. And to me, some of the most chilling policies were when the FBI started just interviewing people at their homes, suspecting them of stuff just because of their religion. And the special registration program that they implemented that required men and boys based entirely on where they were born to come in and register themselves with the government. To me, it spoke of fascism and it made me really ashamed of the country that I was born in. So I'm grateful to CAIR-Ohio for the amazing work that you're doing, supporting our Muslim brothers and sisters in Ohio, and grateful to be here with you all. And honestly, to learn more about this new registry program, which as disgusting and off-putting as it is to me to know that it exists, I also know that we have to arm ourselves with information and be informed so that we can get through the next few years and be able to still be here with our loved ones and be able to have a brighter future. So thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, Lynn.
Indeed, you're welcome, Lynn, and thank you for joining us for this workshop. Zaina Abu Hajle is a local attorney in Columbus. She is one of our young and bright people who are in this space and advocating for that which is righteous, as the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has instructed us to do. And while she is working in the field of healthcare as an attorney, but she is volunteering her time and doing a lot of work to serve the community in the immigration space where there is a lot of need. So we're grateful for your sense of community and sense of decency, really, Zaina. We really appreciate it, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to reward you and to bless you and your family for this charity that you're giving with your time and talent and knowledge. So without further ado, I want to turn it over to you and to teach us a thing or two about the new immigration registry.
Thank you, Khaled. Thank you for having me. I'm very grateful for CAIR and what they're doing for our community. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Like Khaled has mentioned, my name is Zaina Abu Hijla, and I'm going to be your presenter today. I'm going to break down the new immigration registry policy that went into effect this month. If this presentation will cooperate. So the topics we're going to be covering are who's affected, what the risks are, how we can support and protect our communities, and as well as your rights when traveling for citizens and green card holders, because I know that's also an issue that a lot of people are concerned about. So as far as the history behind this, this is not a new law. The Alien Registration Act of 1940 was passed shortly before the U.S. entered World War II. It created a process where all citizens had to register with the U.S. government at their local post office. So the stated goal of the process was to inventory non-citizens in order to identify potential national security threats broadly characterized as communist or subversive. Immigration enforcement was not the point. In fact, propaganda campaigns encouraging non-citizens to register promised legalization for those without authorized status. After World War II, registration was integrated into the immigration process. So instead of going to the local post office, non-citizens registered as part of the process of immigrating to the U.S. through ports of entry. While non-citizens previously had to fill out a separate specialized non-citizen registration form, now their immigration application form did double duty as the registration form. So this meant that there was no way for undocumented people to register under the law, because registration was only for people who qualified for some kind of authorized immigration status. Over the years, the two trends further eroded non-citizens' ability to comply with the duty to apply for registration. First, there's various categories of non-citizens that were exempted from the registration requirements. And then many new forms of immigration status were also never incorporated into the registration regulations. So the Alien Registration Act of 1940 is the only time the U.S. government has carried out, it is the only time that the U.S. government carried out a comprehensive campaign to require all non-citizens to register. The U.S. government's other attempts to force non-citizens to register have been explicitly discriminatory in targeting specific racial groups or nationalities. So the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882 led the U.S. government to create a registration system for Chinese immigrants. This swept up not only people born in China, but also people of Chinese descent born in the U.S. and people that authorities considered to look Chinese. The only modern example of registration is the National Security Entry-Exit Registration System, or NSEERS, which is a post-9/11 program created by the George W. Bush administration that targeted non-citizens from 24 Muslim-majority countries and North Korea for registration and tracking. I think a lot of people who are older than me might remember this better than I do, but the U.S. government forced 83,000 people to register with NSEERS and placed 13,000 of them in deportation proceedings. The government obtained 0 terrorism convictions, and all while supercharging racial profiling and tearing families apart. A lot of families still live with the pain caused by the deportations of loved ones through the NSEERS system. So this current new immigration registry is not really a new registry, it's just a new enforcement of an old rule. Under President Trump's April 2025 executive order, DHS is now requiring all non-citizens to register if they've been in the U.S. for more than 30 days. This includes undocumented immigrants and others who may have overstayed any visas. So any non-citizens who are 18 and older who haven't previously registered must now register with the government. Children who are under 14 must be registered with a parent or guardian. And like I said, this applies to any individuals who have been here for 30 days or longer, regardless of their immigration status. And this is based on existing law, but is newly enforced by the executive order. So there are multiple exceptions to this rule. As of April 11th, DHS requires that non-citizens and adults non-citizen adults and children register and submit biometrics. The rule also requires those individuals to carry proof of registration and notify DHS within 10 days of changing their address. Now, not every citizen is required to register. The following individuals have already registered, but will need to carry proof of registration and update their address within 10 days of changing their address. Green card holders, so lawful permanent residents and people who have filed for adjustment of status. Refugees, people who came to the United States on a non-immigrant or immigrant visa, even if it's expired. People who were paroled, including advanced parole, even if the parole has expired. People who have a border crossing card, even if that card has expired. People granted an employment authorization document, even if it's expired. And people currently in or previously in removal or deportation proceedings who were issued a notice to appear. All other non-citizens are required to register. And in addition, parents and guardians are required to register their children within 30 days of their 14th birthday. So just a reminder that registration requires that all non-citizens 18 years and older carry proof of registration at all times. It's very important that you have that proof of registration on you at all times. And this can include your Form I-94, a parole or visa stamp and a passport, a permanent resident card or green card, your employment authorization card, the I-862 notice to appear, a border crossing card, a Form I-590 registration for classification as a refugee, a Form I-485 application for adjustment of status. So there's many ways that you can have your proof of registration. And if you're not sure if you have one of these or if you have something else that might apply, I would reach out to an attorney or do some more research to see whether or not you have something like this. For non-citizens who are subject to the registration, there are serious consequences involved in both registration and the failure to register. There's substantial risks to registration, including potential detention, deportation, and criminal prosecution for unauthorized entry and or re-entry. The administration might also use the registration process to make collateral arrests of relatives and family members, even if those arrests violate the law. The President and DHS have indicated that they intend to ramp up the use of prosecutions against people who willfully fail to register, submit fraudulent information on a registration form, fail to carry proof of registration, and or fail to notify DHS of their change of address within 10 days. In addition, failing to register may impact a person's ability to be granted immigration benefits. So in each case, it's critical for non-citizens to know their rights and consult with an attorney or an accredited representative. Even individuals who are not required to register may be subject to stops, questioning, and detention by immigration authorities because DHS is starting to implement a new show me your paper practice that could gravely implicate individuals' constitutional and legal rights. So there are several steps that you can take to protect yourself and your family. Before doing anything, talk to a lawyer because registering can expose people to more risk, especially those without legal status. So it's very critical to know your rights, have a plan, and work with trusted nonprofits that can support you. Prepare a safety plan, so have your emergency contacts, have your legal documents together, and have plans for any children or dependents that you may have. And connect with community-based legal clinics. I know there are several out there, but two that are worth mentioning are CRIS, which is Community Refugee and Immigration Services, and Ohio State's Law School's Immigration Clinic. So there are multiple impacts on immigrant communities, which can include increase of government surveillance and data collection. It can deepen fear, mistrust, marginalization of immigrant communities. It risks placing past policies like NCERS, which targeted Muslim men post 9/11, and undocumented individuals tend to avoid seeking medical care, schooling, and reporting crimes. This kind of registry can feel like a tracking system for many of us, and in situations like in NCERS where people complied in good faith and ended up in removal proceedings, it raises serious concerns about civil liberties and privacy and safety for our current brothers and sisters. It's important that we come together as a community, mobilize, vocalize, and advocate. So different ways you can do that is by supporting local and national immigrant rights groups, raising awareness about the risks of registration and the need for legal help, call for legislative oversight and protection for vulnerable populations, advocate for policies that uphold fairness, dignity, and due process. We've seen time and time again that when communities organize, we can push back. From sanctuary policies to local legal defense funds, there are ways to fight back, but we have to stay informed, connected, and active. So there is currently a lawsuit that was filed challenging this new registration rule. However, the request for a preliminary injunction was denied, and so the rule went into effect. So the rule and registration requirement went into effect as of April 11th. And what this means is not that the lawsuit's over. The lawsuit will still continue and it will still go on, but what it means is in the meantime, while this lawsuit resolves, whether it takes months or years, the registration requirement will take place. So if you're wondering how to register, the registration process looks a little bit like any other immigration process. You create a USCIS account, and then you register on that account online, and it'll walk you through all the steps. Each individual has to have their own account, and then separate accounts for children as well. There are detailed registration requirements on USCIS's website, and the process pretty much involves completing the form G325R, which is biometric information, and then submitting biometric data, including fingerprints, and undergoing a background check. And then upon successful registration, you would download and print the proof of alien registration document from your account and carry it with you at all times. There are some frequently asked questions about this. If I register with the new form, will I have permission to stay in the US? Unfortunately, the answer to that is no. Registration does not grant permission to stay in the United States. Once you register, the government will know you are here. And if you do not have permission to stay, DHS says that they will take steps to deport you. Do I have a right to not answer certain questions? Yes, you do have rights. The Fifth Amendment of the Constitution protects everybody in the United States from making statements that might incriminate them in a crime. Many immigration organizations believe that people have a Fifth Amendment right not to submit the online form G325R because the form requires you to divulge criminal activity, including information about having entered the United States unlawfully. Presently, there is no method provided by USCIS to turn in the form and leave those questions blank. Instead, the questions about entry and criminal activity are required. So these organizations believe that it is your right to invoke your Fifth Amendment right and not answer these questions and not submit the current online form which requires answers. I'm not saying that this is CAIR's legal perspective, and I'm not saying it's my legal perspective. You should ask an attorney, but there are organizations that are fighting this in court on this basis. And so this is a legal argument that's being posed by the organizations, and whether it holds up in court or not remains to be seen. The last question is, what should I do if an immigration officer stops me and asks me for my documents? If you're out in public, a government official must have a reason to believe that you're a non-citizen. They can't just guess based on the color of your skin, your job, or where you're located. So you can say, I am exercising my right to stay silent. Am I free to go? If you're in your home, you have the right to not let ICE officers in your home and not to enter the door unless they show you a warrant signed by a judge. Now, for US citizens, as far as your rights while traveling, we've heard from many people concerned about what's happening at the border, even to US citizens and green card holders. So let's talk about your rights, what the government can and can't do, and how you can protect yourself. Because we've seen cases where even Muslim US citizens have been held for hours, asked about prayer habits, or had devices searched. The government's power at the border is broad, but it's not unlimited. You have rights, and knowing them can make a big difference. So you cannot be denied entry to the US. And you can be questioned, but not indefinitely. You do have to eventually be released. You have a right to remain silent. You do not have to answer questions about religion, political beliefs, or social media, or anything at all, actually. Phones and devices, border agents can search them, but you can refuse to give a password. They may end up keeping your phone or, trying to keep you longer to coerce you into giving your password. But again, you do not have to give your password. And if you do give your password, then they may copy your data. Your rights when traveling as a green card holder are a little bit different. Long absences from the US or past arrests, even if they're resolved, can trigger issues when you re-enter. So please talk to an immigration attorney before you travel. You can generally return to the US if your trip was less than 6 months long. Trips that are over 6 months may trigger extra scrutiny or a claim that you've abandoned your residency. Border Patrol may ask about criminal history, extended stays abroad, immigration violations, and you can be placed into removal proceedings at the border if Border Patrol believes that you've violated your status. Just some travel tips. I would limit what's on your phone when crossing the border. So if I were to travel right now, I would probably delete several apps off my phone, like WhatsApp, Signal, Instagram, Facebook. I'd probably delete them and just download them as soon as I get back. I just wouldn't want to risk that. Backup and wipe sensitive data if possible. Have a plan, have emergency contacts, a lawyer's information, and a list of your rights saved on a paper. And then never lie to a federal officer, because even a small lie can trigger serious consequences, right? So if you have two phones, you have a work phone and a personal phone, and they ask you for your phone and you give them one, and then you ask if you have any more. And, I wouldn't say no. I would just be honest and tell them, yes, I do have another phone. You don't want to lie. It's only going to get you further. What to do if you're detained or questioned? I would ask, am I free to go? If they say no, then I would say I wish to remain silent and speak to a lawyer. Do not sign any documents that you don't understand, because they can get you to sign documents that say that you give up your citizenship or you give up your green card or you'll never return to the US. So do not sign paperwork that you don't understand. Ask for an interpreter if you need one. And if one of your devices is taken, then document when it was taken, who took it, when and where that happened. This policy is a reminder of how important it is to stay informed and look out for one another. Whether you're directly affected or you're here to support others, thank you for showing up and standing up for immigrant rights. And I'm happy to take any questions you might have now.
Thank you, Zaina. Thank you so much. That was a lot of information pretty quickly, so I'm sure we're probably gonna take some of it apart, and I'm sure many questions are going to be coming up. So we have a question. So green card holders don't need to register, right? That is
Yes, green card holders do not need to register.
Green card holders, even if the green card is expired, they still do not need to register.
Yes, but always have your green card on you, because that is your proof of registration. Technically, you've already registered by having that green card and having that immigration work done.
Great. Another question, if I'm stopped by the police, do they have the right to ask me about my immigration status? I'm driving on the highway, and then the police pulls me over, whether state police, a state trooper, or a sheriff, or a local police department. Any of them has the right to ask me about my immigration status.
They have the right to ask, but you also have the right not to answer.
And would that complicate things?
It depends on the police officer.
Okay, and I mean, if the police officer, I'm not going to answer that question, and then they will say, well, then I'm going to have to take you into custody because I don't know about your immigration.
Yeah.
So what would be
That's the thing.
to respond to it?
That's the thing. So you need to know your rights. So you know your right not to self-incriminate. So you don't have to speak to a police officer. You don't have to say anything at all, and you definitely don't have to say anything without an attorney. You have a right to an attorney. So always ask for an attorney. Don't ever provide information that you know is going to work against you. And generally, sometimes you might think that by answering questions, it's working for your best interest and that it's going to help you, and the police officer is going to cooperate with you just because you're answering questions. That's not necessarily true. Always ask for an attorney.
Okay, great. Another question we have. I have applied for a GC and just have GC EAD. What should I do? I don't know what these terms mean. You can tell us.
I'm not sure what that means. I don't know if that's an employment authorization decision. I'm not sure.
So the attendee, you said I have applied for a GC and just have GC EAD. What should I do? So please elaborate. I work at a nonprofit. I know many of our clients can't afford an attorney or will have to wait to get an appointment. What do I tell them? Should I have them register? Do I help them register? That's a question.
Absolutely not. Do not help them register, and do not tell them that they need to register, because it could be likely that if they register, they will be deported. Every case should be reviewed by an attorney, and that attorney should tell people whether or not they should register. There are clinics, like I mentioned, that are free clinics that can help. There are multiple, actually, if you just Google, legal clinic immigration Columbus, Ohio, there are multiple. Legal Aid Ohio also has clinics that I volunteer with. So there's several places that they can get free legal help.
Thank you, Zaina. Somebody pointed to me that I have not introduced myself. My name is Khalid Turani. I'm the executive director of Council on American Islamic Relations, CAIR-Ohio, and Columbus, Cincinnati, Dayton, Central and Southern Ohio, basically, and Northern Kentucky. So that's who I am. And thanks for the question, by the way. At the airport, if I get a burner phone, is that okay? And my regular is at home, what can they do?
That's absolutely fine. I actually highly recommend that you do get a burner phone. It's just not everybody can afford that, but 100% if you can have a burner phone on you, that's perfect.
Great. And a question, is it sufficient to have a copy of green card or a picture of it on our phone, or do we have to carry the original green card? I guess if I may add and editorialize the question, if a person is a green card holder and they have a driver license, would they really need to carry their green card with them? Unless they're traveling.
I don't have the full list of proof of registration. The list that I have says permanent resident card / green card. It doesn't say driver's license.
I mean, it's saying that green card holders do not need to register, you're saying, right? So the person...
because that's you having already registered.
Okay.
That's your proof of registration. Your green card is your proof of registration because you've already registered when you applied for that status.
So then the question, is it sufficient to have a copy of the green card or a picture of it on my phone, or do I need to carry the green card itself physically with me? That's the question.
I don't know. I would carry your green card with you because I don't know. You never know. You never know.
Now, would a permanent resident need to carry their green card? I mean, if they have a driver license, I mean, their driver license, should be sufficient ID. Why would a person need to carry their green card if they are
because that's your proof of registration for this registration requirement.
Okay. And the proof of registration is if ICE stop you, but if police stop you, they don't need to know your immigration status, or do they? That's the question. But anyway, maybe we need to post some, yeah. Okay, so the person who asked the question that so I have applied for a green card. GC, I guess, is a green card. Okay, thank you. And just have a green card EAD. What's green card EAD?
Yeah, employment authorization. Yeah. That's perfect. You don't have to register anything. Employment authorization is your proof. So just have your employment authorization or your I-485 or I-130. Either any of those will work.
Okay, thank you, Ali. For those who joined late, this is recorded. How can we view it? So, Omar, how can people view the recording?
We can make a link available.
Okay, so we'll make a link available and we will post it on our website, on our social media. The person asking the same question with the green card, no, if you have your green card, you have applied for your I-485, according to what Zena is saying, is you have registered, so you don't need to register now that you have applied for the green card and just have a green card employment authorization, EAD, then you do not have to register, you're already registered. Where can we update a change of address for a green card holder? That's a question, a new question.
On USCIS's website.
On USCIS website. That's where you change address.
You'd create it.
Mhm. Is there a specific form, or they just people go and just update
You
their?
create an account. You create an account, and then it'll have like change of address. It's very easy to walk through. I've used USCIS multiple times.
The person, can we answer their question? Whose question, please tell us? You mean the police, like, or if you're pulled over, can you answer their questions like your name, address, where are you going, what is the right way to ask why have you been pulled over, or what are you being pulled over for? If you entered, okay. Yeah, so the question is, if you're pulled over, can they ask you where are you going, what is your name, what is your address, all of these questions, and what is the proper way to address this kind of overreach by a police officer, I guess.
Yeah, so the answer is, you say, am I free to leave? And if they say no, then you say, okay, I'm not answering any questions, I'd like an attorney. You don't answer any questions.
Because if you're not free to leave, then you are detained, basically. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because if you're not free to leave, you're being detained.
Okay.
And if you're free to leave, then you're not being detained and you can go.
Okay, and if you're detained, then you have the right to an attorney and you do not need to answer any questions. There you go. If you entered legally under a temporary non-immigrant visa, but that visa has expired, do you need to register?
You do not need to register. You are already registered. Carry your visa with you, even though it's expired. That is your proof of registration.
Okay. No, the person who's having audio issues and can't hear very clearly, we are saying that you should not, if you are a non-attorney, you should not help people register, nor should you tell them to register. If a person is not sure, they should seek the advice of an immigration attorney. That was the answer that Zena said. Is that correct, Zena?
Yes, because I just want to be clear. There's a very real risk that people who register will be deported. So it really does vary on a case-by-case basis, and it should be looked at by an immigration attorney. We shouldn't just be having everybody register.
Okay. Does applying for work authorization count as registering?
Yes, and you should carry your work authorization with you as your proof of registration.
But anyone who's applying for work authorization would be here on some kind of status and they're already registered, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, but I mean, like an employment authorization or whatever application it was, whatever form it was, whatever, that works as your proof of registration. If you don't want to carry your visa or asylum paperwork or whatever else, that would count as proof of registration. That's
I think a good question on many people's mind, and sometimes people are embarrassed to ask this question. So thank you for asking. Do citizens have to carry their citizenship certificate, I guess, passport at all times?
No, this is only for non-citizens.
But how would the officer know? I guess I'm editorializing the question. How would the officer, if you know, I speak with an accent and then the officer stops me in little town USA and says, okay, where's your green card? And say, well, I'm been a U.S. citizen longer than you have lived. And they say, well, I don't know that. I need to know that you are not an illegal alien. And so, like, what do you tell that person? Say, I've been a citizen for 30 years. I haven't lost my accent, but I have been a citizen. And that person. So how would you handle that?
I mean, I really don't know the answer to that because I haven't seen this registration play out just yet. I haven't really seen any of these cases happen just yet. But I mean, we've seen U.S. citizens stopped at the border. You know, we've seen them detained at the border. So does it really make a difference if you're a U.S. citizen?
Yeah,
I don't know that it does.
You can be a U.S. citizen who's born here and who's a lawyer, and you still can be detained, right?
Yeah, right. You
Yeah,
can show them your passport at the border and they'll still detain you. So I don't really know that it makes a difference.
Yeah, but wouldn't you say, Zena, that a point of comfort is that because we've had here at the CAIR's office in Columbus, we've had many people who are coming to the office or writing us or reaching out and asking, and they are U.S. citizens and they are concerned about traveling and coming back and would I be allowed back in the country. Now, even though they might stop somebody or detain them for a brief period of time at the borders, but the threshold of citizenship in terms of rights is really high, and there is really nothing that they can do to you. Eventually, even if you are stopped at the borders or if you are detained for an hour or two, they don't call it detention, they call it like have a seat. But even if you are stopped at the borders, eventually they have no choice but to let you in the country. It doesn't matter whether they like you or they don't. If you are a U.S. citizen, you are entitled to come into the United States of America. Is that correct?
Yes, they will have to release everybody who is a U.S. citizen.
Okay. Okay, my friend has applied for change of status, but due to time, it was declined with some comments. Then attorney had appealed that decision. He's waiting for the outcome of the appeal. I think it has been 2 years now. Does he have to register? His fingerprinting was done along with his family.
That's a very specific scenario. I would ask his attorney who's working on the case because he would have more information. Without seeing the documents and seeing what the response was from the government, it's hard for me to say.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I guess that person need to reach out to their attorney. What if ICE shows up on my doorsteps? Is there an emergency service CAIR or CAIR as in Council on American Islamic Relations? What should we do to get legal help at that moment if ICE shows up at your door?
If ICE shows up at your door, you don't open your door unless there's a signed judge's order or signed search warrant by a judge. You do not open your door for random ICE agents ever. And at that point, you should have an immigration attorney's phone number. Hopefully an attorney that you know will pick up if you call at any time. I know that's not very easy to find, but I think that's important to ask when you're trying to find an attorney, whether or not they will pick up their phone at any time, because these things happen anytime. So that's what I would do. I would.
Zaina, if we can kind of walk people through, if a knock on your door and they say, "We are ICE, open the door," then what are the scenarios that you can go through that, I mean, first, I think the first thing is you don't open the door. Then what if they say, well, we need you to answer the door? And then like, what are your rights? How would you react, or how should a person react if a knock on their door and they say, we are ICE, open the door?
I would say, do you have a search warrant signed by a judge? I don't have to open my door for you unless you have a search warrant signed by a judge.
Mm-hmm.
And then if
And
they do, then
yeah, and if they say open the door so that we can give it to you, you don't open the
I
door.
would say slide it under the door.
Yes, slide it under the door. You do not open the door because they are known to have trick people, right? And grab people from the door. And I heard that they have grabbed people from windows where people open the window and then they reach and grab them and pull them out of the window. This is a case that I heard about. I'm not sure, but so they're known to have applied some aggressive tactics. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, even if you're in your car, I wouldn't open the door or open the whole window, just slide it a tiny bit so that you can hear each other. But I wouldn't be putting yourself in a position to where they can grab you. I would definitely make sure that they have a signed judge's order. And then if that happens, then you can open the door, and at that point you have to open the door. And then at that point you probably want somebody to know where you are and you want to call your attorney. And if not, then don't open the door and just hopefully nothing happens, and they'll go away. I've seen cases where they go away.
I got you.
Can I jump in?
No, please go ahead.
Oh, sure. This is another area where you can also contact our hotline, 419-777-HELP or 4357. I put it in the Q&A as an answer. You can also email us at hotline@ohioimmigrant.org. It's not an emergency line. So if ICE is banging down your doors, you can call us. We will, and if we answer, that's great, but we don't answer like in the evenings and on the weekends. So you'll have to leave us a message. But please call us if this happens to you and if you want us to help you get legal help after the fact. And please leave, if you are detained, please leave the phone number of somebody who is not detained so we can call them back and try to figure out what is going on and where you are and how we can help you. But I also want to say that 99.9% of the time, they do not have a judicial warrant. They will call it what they have a warrant, and they will show you a piece of paper, but most of the time it's not signed by a judge. And in that case, you do not need to open the door. The best thing to do is just to stay inside and they will go away eventually.
Yeah, and you can tell because at the bottom it'll say, where under the signature it'll say judge, whatever the judge's name is. I deal with this every day. People tell me I'm looking at a judge's order and it's not a judge's order. You really should, it should say judge whatever, and you can feel free to even look up the judge and see if they're a real judge. But a lot of times it won't be a judge's signature. It'll be somebody else's signature. And I'm not saying you need to fact check that that's the right signature. I'm just saying you need to make sure that the person's name under that is a judge. Someone's asking, we're in Los Angeles. Where do we find this help? Is CAIR Los Angeles the same hotline as you? So I think, Lynn, I don't know, your hotline, is it an Ohio? It's an Ohio hotline, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm sure, I mean, California has tons of immigrants. I'm sure you have resources there. I would contact your local chapter.
Yeah, I think the CAIR chapter in LA definitely have many resources and have attorneys. And of course, California does have a robust civil rights efforts to support and to help immigrants. So yeah. The one thing about airports and your rights at the airport, if you can tell us a little bit, Zena, about some of the cases where CBP, the Customs and Borders Protection, kind of overreach in terms of when a U.S. citizen is coming back into the U.S. and they will take him aside and then they start asking them questions that are really none of their business. If you can just address some of that, I think it'll be awesome.
Yeah, so again, like I said, you're always advised not to answer any questions, especially as an American. They can't really hold you that long. Eventually, they're going to have to let you go. Yeah, so like I said, again, ask, or am I free to go? And if not, then don't answer and ask to speak to an attorney. I mean, they generally don't make Americans sign paperwork, but still
Yeah.
don't sign any paperwork. You never know.
What is go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, I wouldn't give them the password for to my phone, even if it'll make me go faster. You know, they might try to entice you by telling you it'll go by faster, but I personally wouldn't give them my passcode. But that's, you know, if you don't have anything to hide, or not that I have anything to hide, but if you're not worried about it and you don't mind sharing, then that's up to you. There's no reason that the government needs to have more information.
And the questions that they are entitled to are the excuse me. The questions they are entitled to asking you at the CBP are the questions that are on the form, on the customs declaration form, which basically asks you, what countries have you traveled to? They have the right to ask you that. They ask you, how much money are you bringing in? They have the right to ask you that. Have you been, are you bringing any food, seeds, bacteria, cultures? They have the right, of course, to ask you that. Have you been on a farm or near livestock? And they have the right to ask you that. But do they have the right to ask you on your trip to wherever, where did you stay? They don't have the right to ask you that. If they ask,
No, or did you visit any mosques, or you know,
or who
how
did
many
you visit?
devices do you have with you?
Yeah, or if they ask you, so you say, well, I visited family, and they say, which family? Who did you visit in your family? They don't have the right to ask you that. And of course, if they start, in some, I know many cases where they would start asking people about their religious affiliation. So do you go to the mosque, and which mosque do you go to? That is an absolute no-no. I mean, when they go that far, you know that you've got to stop talking, and they are way overreaching in their questioning. Is that correct?
Yes.
Mhm. Uh, Thank you, Heidi. We appreciate the compliment. Thank you. CAIR is a very active chapter, and we appreciate it. We appreciate you coming and sticking with us. Do you have CAIR hotline number in Texas? For Texas residents. Just really, you need to Google there are a couple chapters, I know, in the Dallas area and the Houston area. So you really need to Google them and find their number. I don't have it off the top of my head, or I can Google it for you. But there is no, I'm not aware of a hotline per se. Just their phone number is where you need to reach in Texas, or any of our chapters, our 35 chapters throughout the country. All of them will have their numbers, and you just need to reach out to them. If you are in a different state, as a visitor to the United States, already registered, and do they need to register if staying more than 30 days? That's the question.
Are you on a visitor's visa? Then no, because that would be your registration. I would carry your visa with you though.
And really, for that matter, Dana, wouldn't you say any visa coming into any visa in the United States, you are
Yeah.
already. Yeah, so if you came through the airport, if you didn't cross, I guess, over the fence,
Trying not to assume.
yeah, well, yeah, if you have not jumped over the fence to come into America, and you came through the airport with a visa of any sort, you already have registered, because you registered when you applied for your visa, whatever, whether it's student, B1, B2, H1 visa, whatever it is. Is that? I'm not an attorney, so I'm not giving legal advice. I'm leaving that to Zaina, who is the attorney here. But I'm just posing a question as a scenario. Is that
No, you're right.
Mhm. So if somebody came, has a visa, and entered the United States on a visa, any visa, they have registered already, and that's how they obtain their visa.
Yeah.
Do visitors need to carry their passports all the time when they are outside of their home.
You need to carry your visa with you all the time when you're outside of your home. If your visa is in your passport, then yes.
Yeah, and a photocopy of it is not sufficient, or is it?
That hasn't been made clear, so I'm not sure yet.
Yeah, okay. I heard that even if we delete info from our phones or apps, they can still retrieve that data. Is that true? That's not a legal question. That's more of an IT question, but the answer
Yeah,
is,
I'm not sure.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, I'll tell you. This is not a legal question. It's an IT question. If you delete data on your phone, can they retrieve that data on your phone? Yes, of course they can. Absolutely, they can. I mean, unless you go through extraordinary lengths to scrub data off your phone, most likely, if they get a hold of your phone, they can retrieve deleted data off your phone. The person is asking because we said do not give your password. That's why they're asking if deleted apps. I mean, yeah, I'm not sure. No, I think the answer is the answer. If you delete data, they still can retrieve it. I think these are all the questions that we have so far. And it is 8 o'clock, so we are done here in an hour time. And do we have any other questions? I think we have answered all the questions. Okay. Mahmoud Khalil was just abducted in daylight. What about a case like that? Okay.
Yeah, I think that's why it's important to be prepared and have an attorney's number, have plans for your dependents, your children, and then also know your rights, because things like that will happen. I mean, we've seen them happen to multiple people already. And I think that's, illegal things that should not be happening are happening. And so we can't, I can't promise that things aren't going to happen. The legal cases are going to play out, and we'll see how those play out, and hopefully they play out in our favor. But in the meantime, that's why it's so important to have all your ducks in a row and have a plan for if, in a crazy situation that were to happen. Obviously, we haven't seen any abductions here in our local community, but just in case, it's important, I think.
Okay, the one question is traveling within the United States. Let's say I have my driver license and I'm traveling from here to Los Angeles, California. Do the airport authority, TSA, or any one of those people, do they have the right to ask me for my immigration paper? Because many of us, I mean, at least in the Muslim community, I think about 60% of us were born outside of the United States. People like me, I don't necessarily have a Boston or a New York accent, but I have a foreign person's accent. And if they stop me at the airport and they ask me for my my immigration paper, first the first part of the question, do they have the right to ask me that at the airport? And I don't carry my passport everywhere. And if I'm not carrying it, would they deny me the right to fly, for example? I'm coming back home and I'm in LA and I'm 3,000 miles away from home or 2,000 miles away from home. Do they have the right to stop?
So it's very unlikely that would happen, because you have a much broader right to travel within the country than to travel from outside of the country into the country, and vice versa. The person's right to travel within the country is very, very broad and constitutionally protected. Your right to travel in and out of the country is not constitutionally protected.
Okay, so they really do not have the right to ask about immigration papers or immigration status at the airport, especially if you're...
No, and that's why you never get asked questions, right? When you go from state to state or from city to city, they never ask you, where are you going? What are you doing? I mean, unless they're trying to just make casual conversation, they don't ask you the kinds of questions that they ask when you're coming in from out of the country.
And they're not your friends, so don't have these conversations. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Will ICE allow you to make calls to attorneys or family members during investigation? Well, ICE doesn't investigate, ICE detains, right? ICE is Immigration and Customs Enforcement, so their job is to enforce, not to investigate. Is that correct, Zaina?
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah. So they do not investigate, but I guess the question, if you're detained or kidnapped by ICE, will they allow you to make a call to an attorney or to family members? I mean, if they did not identify themselves to the sister who was detained or kidnapped in Boston, they would not identify which agency they were from and all of that. So I wouldn't count on their good graces to allow you to call an attorney, even though you have the right to call an attorney or family members, right?
Yeah. I think eventually you will get a call. I don't think it'll be as fast as it's supposed to be, or as it would be if you were just to get arrested, by regular police for a crime.
Okay. Will ICE allow us to carry the phone or take it away? We recently started to see messages of people missing, no means of contacting them. Can family members reach out to ICE to find out about their missing family members? That's really it's an unfortunate thing that you have to ask this question in the United States of America in 2025, that a person is missing, and can we call ICE and inquire if our loved ones are detained by ICE? But I guess, a sad reality is a sad reality. So what is the legal question, the legal answer to this question, Zaina?
I mean, the legal answer is they don't have to tell anybody other than their attorney where they are. And even the attorneys are having trouble finding where their clients are right now. So unfortunately, I mean, you can try your luck. I'm not saying they won't tell you, but they don't have to tell you.
Okay.
I can just add to that. Make sure your loved ones know your A number, because there is a website, the ICE detainee locator, and there's a period of time between when you are arrested and when you appear in this detainee locator. It could take a few hours, but there's an easy online way for you to input the A number and find out if your loved one is detained, and it'll tell you where they're detained. If you don't know their A number, you can also look them up by name, date of birth, and country of origin. But that can get a little tricky because sometimes with our names, if we have multiple last names, sometimes they don't get smushed together, or they do. So the easiest way is to know the A number, make sure somebody has that. And then you can also check the rosters of the Butler County Jail, Seneca County Jail, and the Mahoning County jails. Those are all public. So those are a few different online ways you can try to find out where your loved one is if they are arrested in Ohio, or if they've disappeared and you don't know where they are.
Len, is there a national registry? I mean, we have people here from Texas, some people from Los Angeles.
Yep.
So is there a national
Yeah,
registry, and what is that?
it's the ICE detainee locator system. I'll go ahead and put the link in the Q&A as an answer
Can
to the question. Yeah.
can we post that answer to everybody who's on the call, that link?
I also will say that if
Yeah.
they're at a local jail, you're much more likely to get an answer. Local jails, I find that if you call, they'll tell you who's there. It's the ICE detention centers that are the tricky ones.
But for a national registry, one more time, Len, what is that registry? What is that website?
All you gotta do is Google ICE detainee locator and it'll pop up. But I tried to put the link in the Q&A as an answer. So hopefully you guys can see it.
Okay, locator. Locator.
Yeah, ICE detainee. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so it is but people, I don't think people can see. Omar, can you answer that if people can see the link that Len just posted? Or I can
Yeah, it
send it.
should be available in the chat feature. I believe people can see when the
Yeah, it's at
panelists.
the very, very bottom.
Okay. Okay, participants, if you can see the link that Len just posted, please say yes, just so that we'll know. And if you can't, say no, I guess. I see it. Okay, thank you very much. So it is there. Thank you, Len. This is going to be helpful. I think for people whose status is not very clear, maybe it is a good idea to give this to family members and to kind of exchange it on your different WhatsApp groups as families and friends and so on and so forth. Well, this is great. I think I don't see any new questions, and we certainly appreciate it, Zaina, and we appreciate Len and your input. Thank you, everyone, for participating and taking part in this workshop. There's going to be uh, regular workshops that we're going to announce where we will deal with specific questions and specific laws and cases that are happening. Today we talked about the new immigration registry, which is really something totally new from the 1940s, before World War II. They have resurrected this immigration registry. So we never know what is going to happen with this administration. So stay tuned, subscribe to our email list, follow us on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, X, and stay tuned for more workshops that are probably more specialized and will address these different topics. Zaina, thank you so much for taking the time. We really appreciate it. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you and bless you and your family. And I know you're taking from your own time to come and volunteer to answer these questions and educate our community. The one thing, once again, people who are coming into the country and people who are traveling and coming back as U.S. citizens, generally speaking, and correct me if I'm wrong because I'm not an attorney, I'm not giving legal advice here, but if you are an American citizen coming into the country, back to the USA, there's nothing for you to worry about that you're not going to be allowed in the country. You are a citizen, you're coming home. So there is nothing, unless they're going to arrest you for something, there is nothing that they can do to prevent you from going to your home in the city where you're from, if you are a U.S. citizen. Is that correct, Zaina?
Yes, and again, like I said, there are these crazy cases that we're hearing about every once in a while of people being just detained, but it's only a few hours, and eventually they are let go and they return home. So they are not able to hold you longer than that if there's no reason for them to hold you, right? So if you don't have like a pending crime or something crazy like that, which I'm assuming none of you have.
Yeah, a different ball game, and that is a different topic, and it's
Yeah.
not. So great. Thank you so much, everyone. It is almost Maghrib time here in Columbus. And if you're not in Columbus, God bless you. Thank you very much. Jazakumullah khairan. And stay tuned. We will be having more of these, and we'll be answering your questions and serving our community as usual. Council on American Islamic Relations in Columbus, Central and Southern Ohio. I know we had Fatin Ode, my colleague from Cleveland, the Cleveland chapter, and I know we had people from other places. So thank you, everyone. Jazakumullah khairan. See ya.